After you finish recording, a good rough mix is important to allow you to hear what you've recorded and how well everything works together. If you're a Pro Tools user and you have access to the exercise files, you can open the Pro Tools session file called Rough Mix and follow along. You can find out a lot more about mixing in my Audio Mixing Bootcamp course here on lynda.com, but in the meantime, here are some quick steps to setting up a rough mix. In order to get a great rough mix, you have to understand the nature of a musical arrangement. Every type of music consists of 5 major elements. Let's take a listen to each of these elements within the Pro Tools tracking session we created for the yoga track, Simply Falling. The first is the foundation, which provides the pulse of the song. This usually comes from the bass and drums, although it could come from any instrument with a lot of low-frequency information like a tuba. Let's have a listen to the foundation element of Simply Falling. Next is the rhythm, which provides the feeling of motion in the song. This can come from a strumming guitar, a piano playing eighth notes or an arpeggiated line, or percussion instruments like congas or shakers. Let's listen to the rhythm element of Simply Falling. The next major element is the pad, which provides the glue to the song. This is a long sustaining note or chord that can come from an organ, strings, a synthesizer, or even power chords from an electric guitar. Let's listen to the pad element in Simply Falling. Next we have the lead, which provides the melody of the song. This is usually the vocal or instruments playing the melody. As you would expect, the lead element of Simply Falling is the lead vocal.
There goes my heart again. All of this time I thought we were pretending. Nothing looks the same when your eyes are open. Now you're playing these games to keep my heartbeat spinning.
And finally, the fills, which provides interest. The fills can come from almost any instrument that's playing a counterline to the melody or in between the phrases of the lead. In this case, the piano plays the fills.
When your eyes are open, now you're playing these games to keep my heartbeat spinning. Show me love, show me love, show me everything my heart.
Good arrangers and producers know that having more than 5 elements playing in the song at the same time is confusing to the listener, and most songs rarely have all 5 occurring at once. That doesn't mean that there can't be more than 5 instruments playing at once, though. In most cases, a number of instruments are playing the same part in different registers, and they make up a single element. As an example, here we have 2 keyboard parts, but they make up a single pad. The key to a powerful sounding rough mix of any kind of music is to remember that the foundation instruments must be in the forefront of the mix, while the lead can be at the same level, a little more or a little less. The other instruments are added at levels somewhat less than the other elements. To sum it all up, most great arrangements consist of no more than 5 musical elements occurring at the same time: the foundation, the pad, the rhythm, the lead, and the fills. Regardless of the music, a powerful mix always has the foundation instruments at the forefront, with the lead vocal or instrument around the same level. The other instruments are usually mixed in at a lesser level. To find out a lot more about the secrets to mixing, check out the Audio Mixing Bootcamp course. So now that we've got the tracks recorded, it's time to put a quick mix together. That way we can send it to the band and everyone can start hearing what the song is going to sound like when it's fully mixed. Before we begin our rough mix, let's set up some effects so we can put any instruments or vocals into an artificial space if necessary. This setup is designed to get you up and running quickly with the parameters in a general position to where they almost always sound at least acceptable and sometimes even surprisingly good. This setup also works well when you're tracking and need some quick effects. It uses 2 different reverbs and a delay. Reverb 1 will be used primarily for the drums. Set it to a room with a decay at 1.5 seconds and a pre-delay of 20 milliseconds. If a low-pass filter is available, set it to 10 kHz or even 8 kHz. If a high-pass filter is available, set it to about 600 Hz. Let's listen to what it sounds like on the snare drum.
There goes my heart again. Now you're playing these games, keep my heartbeat spinning. Show me love.
Reverb 2 is meant for all other instruments and vocals. Set it to a plate with a 1.8 second decay time and a pre-delay of 20 milliseconds. If a low-pass filter is available, set it to 10 kHz or even 8 kHz. If a high-pass filter is available, set it to 150 Hz. Let's listen to this reverb on the guitar and then on the piano.
Nothing looks the same when your eyes are open. Now you're playing these games, keep my heartbeat spinning. Show me love, show me love, show. There goes my in these games, keep my heartbeat spinning. Show me love, show me love, show me.
The delay can be used on vocals and instruments. Set it for about 220 milliseconds of delay and the feedback for a couple of repeats, which is about 4%. In a real mix, we would time the delay to the tempo of the song. Let's listen to what it sounds like on the vocal.
There goes my heart again. All of this time I thought we were pretending. Nothing looks the same when your eyes are open. Now you're playing these games, keep my heartbeat spinning. Show me love, show me love, show me everything my heart is capable of.
So there you have it. The setup of 2 reverbs and a delay will get you up and running quickly and sound surprisingly good. Set the first reverb to a room with a decay of 1.5 seconds and use that for the drums. Set the second reverb to a plate with a decay time of 1.8 seconds and use that for everything else. Use a pre-delay of 20 milliseconds for both reverbs and roll them off at 100 Hz and 10 kHz. Finally, add a delay set to about 220 milliseconds and a couple of repeats to use on the vocal. Here's how we build a rough mix for the song that we recorded. Keep in mind that a rough is usually done quickly and may not have any of the EQ, automation, or effects tweaks that the final mix might have. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the drum mix together, and I'm going to start with the kick drum. I'm going to bring it up to about 0. Next thing I'll do is I'll bring the snare top mic up. Now there's 2 mics on this snare drum. There's one on the top and one on the bottom. So the top one will sound somewhat dull and the bottom one will add a little bit of snap. So let's listen to the top one first. Now watch when I bring the bottom one up. I'll only bring it up so I can just about hear it, and that's usually the right amount. You can hear the snap coming in. Next thing I'll do is bring the overheads up so I can hear the cymbals and the overall sound of the drum kit. Well, let's pan those out. you can hear the cymbals where you couldn't before. And you can hear how the sound of the hi-hat actually came up and the sound of the snare drum changed a little bit. Speaking of the hi-hat, let's bring that up. Even though you can hear it now, we're going to bring it up so there's more definition. Let's pan that out. The next thing we want to do is bring the toms up. And the best way to do that is to go to a place in the song where the toms are featured. That's some sort of a fill. And in this case, it's the beginning of the song where it actually enters with the drum fill. So let's bring those up. We'll just start at 0 here and see what it sounds like with the rest of the drums. And you can hear they're kind of quiet, so let's bring them up a bit more. We can hear more of the floor tom than the rack tom, so let's even that out a little bit. A little more rack. So that sounded about the right balance. The next thing we want to do is to add a little bit of space around the drums, and the way we do that is to add some reverb. So what we're going to do is add the reverb that we had already set up in the previous movie about effects. And we'll start with the snare drum. Let's play it and have a listen to what it sounds like. Because without it, we don't want to add too much because then it will swim in ambience, and that's not the way we usually hear anything in a room environment. Just about the time we can hear it is usually enough. And then once the other instruments go in, we have to tweak it a little bit, but that's about the place to start where we hear it right now. The other thing we want to do is add a little bit of that same reverb on the toms as well. So let's do that. Let's bring it up to -5 on each of these and just see what it sounds like. That's a little much, so let's bring that down a little bit on each of them. Good. That sounds pretty good. We can tweak it later if we have to once we get the other instruments in the mix, but that's a good place to start. Let's now bring the bass in. There are 2 different bass tracks. One is the direct, and the second one is with the bass amp that's mic'd. So let's start with the DI first, and we'll bring in the bass amp to about the same level as the kick and snare. Let's solo that for a minute. Put both of them together and you have a little bit of the attack and aggressiveness that you get from the DI and a little bit of the warmth that the amplifier gives you. And sometimes it goes just the opposite, where you get more of the aggression from the amp and more of the roundness from the DI. Anyway, let's listen in the track. The next thing I'm going to bring in is the rhythm instrument. In this case, it's the rhythm guitar. And what I like to do is pan it opposite from the hi-hat. So in this case, the hi-hat's on the right-hand side, which it usually is. If you're watching the drummer, his hi-hat's usually on the right. So we like to put it that way just so we get the audience perspective. And whatever's playing the rhythm part, and it could be a keyboard or it could be some hand percussion or something, I'm going to put that opposite so there's a balance in the rhythm. Let's do that now. Now that sounds just a little dry, so once again, let's add some reverb. And we've already inserted a send. Let's just hear what it sounds like when we solo it up. Let's listen with the track, now that it's in some sort of a space. Here's with the effect muted. And with it in. Once again, you don't need much to really make it work. If you add too much, you'll wash the mix out. And once you have all the other instruments in, you might want to add a little more or take some away, but just about the time you can hear it is when you'll stop, at least at this stage of the mix. The next thing we'll start with is the pad. And let's bring that in now and hear what it sounds like. This is in stereo, and what we're going to do, usually with pads, we want to put them hard left and hard right. So let's do that right now and play it and hear it come in. Now with the pad, usually it's just a glue, and many times you don't even hear it in the mix. If it's not there, you notice the fact that it's not there, but if it is there, it just adds a little something extra that makes the mix feel better. So again, if it's too loud, it's not going to work. Just about the time you hear it is pretty much right. So the other thing we're going to do is add a second pad instrument. In this case, it's sort of a Rhodes sound, and it's a pulsating Rhodes sound. And we'll also pan that hard left and hard right. Maybe we won't go quite as hard as the other synth pad. And let's bring that in and hear what it sounds like. Next thing we have is the piano. Now, the piano is also mic'd in stereo in that there's a high mic and a low mic for the high strings and one for the low strings. And it does sound good if we pan it hard left and hard right in certain circumstances. But it doesn't mean just because it's recorded in stereo that you actually have to always put it in stereo or at least wide stereo. And in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to put it a little bit opposite of the rhythm guitar. So what we're going to do is pan it just a little over this way, like so. And let's bring it in and hear what it sounds like. By panning it to the right, it gives us just a little bit of contrast against the guitar that's on the left, and that's kind of what we want. If we pan everything hard left and hard right, we get something that I call big mono. With everything panned hard left and hard right, it actually doesn't sound good anymore, and it just kind of sounds very bland instead of stereo, which is exciting. So that's why we're better off just narrowing our sound field, and it will sound better. If we listen to the piano soloed, once again, this sounds very, very dry, and we'd like to put it in a space. Let's just listen for a second. So we already inserted a reverb send, and what we're going to do is just add a little bit and hear what it sounds like once we put it in space. And we'll add the same amount on our low end as well. And let's have a listen. Let's listen with the track. We also have an organ, and the organ is also recorded on 2 tracks. It's not necessarily stereo, though, because what we have is a low-frequency speaker and a high-frequency speaker on the organ Leslie. So if we pan them hard left and hard right, or even any kind of panning at all, it sounds kind of funny because you have the low end on one side and the high end on another. So you can consider these pretty much just a single space in the sound field. And in this case, we're going to put it sort of up the middle. Let's put it a little to the left and hear what it sounds like. Let's listen to what it sounds like soloed. So we already added some reverb on that. Once again, what we're trying to do here is put each of our instruments into a space. When we do the final mix, it may not be all in the same space. We may want to put each one in a slightly different one to make it a little bit more layered. In this case, we basically have two layers. We have one effects layer for the drums, and we have another one for the rest of the instruments. And that will work really well for just our quick rough mix. Now let's go to the lead vocal and put that in. In this case, we have a lead vocal and a lead vocal double and a harmony. And usually what we want to do is add the lead vocal first and bring the lead vocal double in later after we get the lead vocal primary sounding pretty good. So let's bring that up and have a listen. But first we want to go to where the vocal is. And I've already set markers for each individual song section. So let's bring the memory locations up. And I did that by hitting Command or Apple number 5. It brings it up. And in this case, we want to go to, we're going to start with the second verse because the second verse has the harmony and also has the double on it. So let's have a listen.
And justify why you're gone for the moment. I tumble sometimes. Look.
Now, once again, we'll want to put that into a space. So let's have a quick listen one more time just to the lead vocal soloed.
I'm taking time to envision where your heart is and justify.
Now we can put some reverb on it, but a lot of times what I like to do is add a delay because it adds a different type of space to it, and it's kind of nice. Once again, if you begin to hear it, then it's almost too much. So just about the time we begin to feel it and hear it is about the right amount. Let's bring that in now and have a listen.
I'm taking time to envision where your heart is and justify why you're gone for the moment. I tumble sometimes looking for sunshine, and you know that this is right when you look into my eyes. You show me love, you show me love, you show me everything my heart is capable of.
Now you can hear I was muting the effect and I was bringing it back in. I was muting it and bringing it back in, just so you can hear the difference of what it sounds like when the lead vocal has a little bit of effect on it and when it's muted and very dry and in your face. There are times when you want it dry and in your face, and that's appropriate for certain types of music and certain types of mixes with certain types of arrangements. In this case, we do want it to have a little bit of an environment around it, and a little bit of reverb does that pretty well. So now let's go to the harmony vocal, and we'll have a listen to that along with the lead.
I'm taking time to envision where your heart is and justify why you're gone for the moment. I tumble sometimes looking for sunshine, and you know.
Now in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to add exactly the same effect. The easy way to do that is you hit the Option key and click and drag the send from the lead vocal channel, bring it over and have a listen.
I'm taking time to envision where your heart is and justify why you're gone for the moment. I tumble sometimes looking for sunshine, and you know that this is right when you look into my eyes. You show me love.
Now let's go to the second chorus when there's a lead vocal double that comes in. Let's listen as I bring it in.
You have broken into my heart. This time I feel the blues have departed. Nothing can keep me away from this feeling. I know I am.
Now usually with the double, you could have two different approaches to it. The first approach is when you want to actually change the sound of the vocal or you have some tuning problems, in which case you want both vocals, the primary vocal and the double, you want them at exactly the same level. Now, there are certain times when that doesn't really apply. It's not appropriate for the song. So, in fact, what you want to do is use the double as just some sort of support to change the sound a little bit or make it a little bit fuller. And in this case, that's what we're going to do. So if you take notice, you could hear it, you could feel it, but you don't really notice it as a double so much. Let's listen.
You have broken into my heart. This time I feel the blues have departed. Nothing can keep me away.
Now let's listen again. This time I'm going to mute the double. Listen to what it sounds like, and then I'm going to unmute it as well.
You have broken into my heart. This time I feel the blues have departed. Nothing can keep me away from this feeling. I know.
It's very subtle, but it does reinforce the part. The other thing it also does is it changes the sound of the vocal from the verses to the chorus. When you have a double that happens only on the chorus, it makes it sound a little bit fuller, and that's a production trick that's been used for a really, really long time. The next thing we're going to do is listen to some background vocals. And in this case, we did 2 different passes on each vocal, so it's a double again. But there's a little bit of a difference in that they each sound slightly different because of the ambience. In one case, they were closer to the mic than the second case, and it gives it a little bit fuller sound. So what we're going to do is we're going to pan these out just a little bit and bring them in, and you'll have a listen.
You have broken into my heart. This time
Wrong track.
you have broken into my heart. This time I feel the blues have departed. Nothing can keep me away. Keep me away.
Now you can see that the track on the right is a little bit louder. So what we're going to do is we're going to just turn it down a little bit. Let's have a listen.
Into my heart.
A little bit more.
Keep me away. Simply falling for you. There my heart.
Once again, let's put it into a space. So we could either add reverb or we can add a delay. In this case, I think we're going to try some reverb and hear what it sounds like. So we're going to go to our main reverb, our plate reverb, and try it there. So what we'll do is we'll bring this up. Have a listen.
You have broken into my heart.
You can hear a little bit of it there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that, moving it over to the second vocal. And here's what they both sound like.
Into my heart. I feel the blues have departed. Nothing can keep me away from this feeling. I know I am simply falling for you.
Now let's go to the bridge there. The bridge actually has some more background vocals, and they're a little bit different because, yes, they're doubled, but the parts are inverted. So in other words, it's 3-part harmony, but the way they're stacked are a little bit different. There's a higher version on the right-hand side than from the left. So first thing we'll do is we'll pan those a little. In this case, I'm going to pan them a little bit wider. Let's have a listen.
Falling for you. There my heart goes again. Ooh, nothing to break me away.
And you can hear the part on the left is a little bit lower in register than the right. But again, we got to put them in a space. So now I'm going to go back to the delay. This is our bus 21 here. Let's have a listen. And again, I'm going to copy it over to the second vocal track, and let's listen.
I'm falling deeper, and there's nothing to break me away from this.
A little bit loud and a little bit too much on the delay. Let's bring that down in both cases. Now you can see what happened there. I have the background vocals grouped together, and that's over here. I think this is background group number 3. So if I wanted to actually change the level individually, I would just click over here, and if it's not highlighted, then you can see I can bring the level up and down without anything happen. If I come over here and I highlight the group, then they'll both attenuate or increase together. But the same thing works also on the sends as well. If I bring the send down on one track, it also brings it down on the other. So let's have a listen.
Falling for you, there my heart goes again in your arms. I'm falling deeper, and there's nothing to break me away from this.
Now, we're at the solo, and now we have a solo guitar. Let's bring that guitar lead up, have a listen. Now, once again, it's very dry and very in your face, so what we really like to do is put that in some sort of an environment, and we'll add the delay again. The delay really works well on solo instruments, so let's bring a little bit of that up, solo it, and have a listen. You can hear it. We're in an environment now. Let's listen to it dry and with the delay on it. So now you can hear what it sounds like with the delay on the lead guitar as well. Now what we're going to do is let's go to the outro and add the strings and horns. So we're going to go to the out chorus, and let's bring that in.
There my heart goes again. You have broken into my heart.
Now what has happened here, we have just the violin and the cello, and we've doubled them. And what we're going to do is spread these out a little bit. We're going to go to the left and right, both the violin and the cello. We're not going to go exactly the same on both of them, so it just puts them in a little bit different space and sounds a little bit different. Now let's listen. Now strings really benefit from reverb, and usually they like a lot of it. So what we're going to do is insert our plate reverb and bring that up. And we're going to start about at -5. And again, I'm going to copy it over onto all the other tracks. Let's have a listen.
There my heart goes again.
Let's add a little more. Let's listen to the track. One more time. Listen from the top of that section.
There my heart goes again. You have broken into my heart. Oh, I'm falling deeper.
And you can hear, in this case, the strings really like a lot of reverb. And in fact, you can go a little bit heavier on any kind of string section than you usually can on anything else, because that's the way we like to hear the strings. We usually hear them in a hall, and a hall has a lot of reverb, so it sounds natural to us. Now let's go and let's listen to the horns as well. These are just horn stabs. Let's go from the top. Now in this case, we have a bari on one side and we have trumpet and trombone on the second track. And we can spread them out just a little so they sound bigger, and we'll do that. And once again, we want to put them in an environment. It might sound better to put them in something different, so in this case I'm going to add a tad of delay just so it sounds different from the strings. And once again, we'll do the same thing. We'll copy it over to the other track, and let's bring that up about here and have a listen. A little much. Let's bring it down a bit. Start from the beginning. Okay, let's have a listen with everything in.
There my heart goes again. You have broken into my heart. Oh, I'm falling deeper, I'm falling deeper, I'm falling deeper.
Now, right in this section, we have some more vocals, and what this is background vocals on 2 more tracks, and they're singing a different part. And what we're going to do is go to the outro. I'm going to open my memory locations window and choose the ending, which is what I called the last outro section, and listen to the background vocals there. Let's have a listen. Once again, what happens here is we want to put them in an environment. Easiest way is the first background tracks that we had. We already put some reverb on, so we'll just do the same thing. We'll copy the send over to those tracks and have a listen.
Simply falling. I'm falling deeper. I'm falling deeper. Simply falling.
Now there we go. We have the mix pretty much together. There's one other thing we're going to do. If you take notice, our mix is peaking into the red here. We're getting some overload lights. Just take a listen and watch where the peak meters are sitting. We can help this by adding a compressor. So here's a couple little tricks. The first thing I'll do is I'll add a compressor, and we'll go to Dynamics, and I like the regular Pro Tools compressor. So let's put that in. And I like the settings that we have here. These will kind of work. Now just watch what we'll do. We'll make sure we don't add too much, just a tad, and it will make a difference in how it sounds. That's way too much. We want to add just a little bit and it evens everything out. And I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to add another set of dynamics. In this case, it's going to be Maxim, which is Pro Tools version of a limiter. And we're going to set this so it's down here at about -1 dB. What happens is this will never go into clipping. This is always going to stay at -1 dB, and we can check that by clicking on our overload lights so they go off. Now have a listen. Now you can see that we've actually clipped again, even though it's not supposed to on a limiter like this. On some limiters, they're absolutely brick wall, where you say stop at -0.1, -1, whatever you choose, and it stops there, it never goes above. In this case, it's leaking through a little bit, but that's okay. What we'll just have to do is turn our overload LEDs off, and we'll have to back off on the master level, and there's nothing wrong with that. So let's have a quick listen from the beginning and just tweak our balances a little bit. We're going to go to the top of where the rhythm section comes in with the rest of the band. So that was pretty good. Let's go on to the next verse and have a listen, because that's where some harmonies come in.
I'm taking time to envision where your heart is and justify why you're gone for the moment. I tumble sometimes looking for sunshine, and you know that this is right.
And one thing I noticed in listening here is the pad seems a little low. Let's bring that up just a little bit.
I'm taking time to envision where your heart is and justify why you're gone for the moment. I tumble sometimes.
Now let's go out to the second chorus and listen to the background vocals.
You have broken into my heart. This time I feel the blues have departed. Nothing can keep me away from this feeling. I know I am simply falling through. There my heart goes again in your arms. I'm falling deeper, and there's nothing to break me away from this.
The last thing we want to do is listen to the outro with the strings and horns.
There my heart goes again. You have broken into my heart. Oh, I'm falling deeper, I'm falling deeper, I'm falling deeper.
Now, one other thing we want to do that we haven't done yet is the intro on the front, which is just the pad and the dobro. So let's do that now. And once again, I have a memory location for it, so I clicked on that. Let's bring it up. Now, once again, let's spread this out and bring up the dobro. And the dobro here sounds very, very, very close to you, and it's probably not the right sound for this song, so what we're going to do is put it in an environment again, and the way we do that is let's add our plate reverb, and add the same thing on both channels. Let's bring it up and have a listen. That's a little loud compared to the rest of the track, so let's bring these down a little bit. Have a listen. So there you go. That's a pretty good rough mix. Didn't take too long to get there. If you take notice, we didn't add any EQ. We didn't add any compression. If we wanted to take another half hour, we can tweak things up even better. But you can see, even without any of that, you can still make it sound really good. Keep in mind that the master mix bus level will get louder and louder with every instrument entrance. That's why it's best to begin your mix with the mix bus meter reading at about minus 10 dB, regardless of what instrument you start off with. In the next movie, you'll get a chance to hear what the final mix really sounds like.